great responsibility our elders have. Well, they are responsible for the rest of us. You know, even if I had ever qualified to be an elder, I doubt if I would have been strong enough, you see, to have faced. And we need to respect our elders right here this morning. We need to respect their decisions that they make and to follow them, because they're God-sent men. God selected men to help with the church. In fact, to take care of the church. They're men who know the Bible. They have to. Men who can stand up for the truth in the face of opposition. You know, these are men that they have to face that, and a lot of the time, we never know about it. It's in the background. They have secrets that they can't reveal. I think we're going to have a meeting this evening or something tonight. And I hope and I'm sure they understand. You can't go home tonight. Honey, let me tell you what they decided today. I hope you don't. And it's not because you don't trust your wife. See, she's got a friend. She's got a friend. Do you know what they decided at church tonight? You see, that's why the elders have to be men in secret in a lot of the decisions that they make from meeting to meeting. We probably I don't maybe respect our elders enough because of the responsibility that God has placed upon them. You see, well, it's on them. If the church ever goes astray, don't let anybody hear you. You know what that preacher did to that church? No. If the preacher did that to the church, the elder would have already done it. You see? I think we just need to be so thankful for the church, of all of the good, of all of the benevolent work that they do around the world, of all of the evangelism work that they support around the world. We need to support that all the way. And so again, I don't want you to throw me aside. God's not done with me yet. You may not like what you see this morning, but just hold on. God's still working on it yet. So you'll keep working. But anyway, really, I think we need to thank God for this church, for its growth, for its spiritual strength, and for the leadership that it has. Let's thank God every morning, every night, for this kind of a church, and this kind of an eldership that oversees it. And I guess that's all I had to say. And so anything that you'd like to say, any praise you want to give to the church, I may have overlooked something, I don't know. Anything that you'd like to say, be free to do that. But we're out of the book of Isaiah, in the book of Isaiah. I think I've studied as well as I've studied the Bible over 70 years. And the book of Isaiah becomes a difficult book for me. Because you see, the book of Isaiah is not really plainly stated language. Platonic analogies. Here's a story, but it's not saying what the surface is saying. It's saying a different thing, a different meaning. When it's tells, like when we get in the New Testament, a sower went forth to sow. The Lord wasn't talking about going out into the garden and planting seeds. And if the Lord had not explained to us, this is what I'm talking, this is what I mean, it would have been hard for us to have decided. But then the Lord decided, what I'm really saying is, a man went out to preach the gospel, and the soils in which it fell were hearts, and of different kinds, even as the different soils that the seeds that are sown in. He said that first soil that was unprepared soil, hard soil. There was no depth at all of germination and bringing forth, a plant. Then when he decided to explain that to us, we're talking about a heart that's hardened. And before there's any way of germinating in that heart, bringing forth a plant that will produce spiritual things, the devil comes along, takes it out of the way. Now that's what I was talking about. That Jesus is saying, that's the kind of a soil that I was talking about here in Matthew chapter 13. You see, this is why Jews would not travel through Samaria, because of times like now, the Samaritans, and that they'd sort of taken over the 10 tribes of Israel, right here in Isaiah. There were 2 tribes, Israel, Judah, that there was a remnant that had not been overtaken. Although they were being pressured every day, the Assyrians, the Babylonians, the Samaritans, all of these. Look at what we'll look at in just a moment. They're breaking you into pieces. But then when we look at what Isaiah says, he's not talking about breaking you physically into pieces. He's tearing you up with your faith. He's tearing you up with your Christian living, your godly living. He's trying to lead you away from God. And he's pretty well done that with the 10 tribes. But then with all of this, we'll look at in just a minute, there'll be a remnant left. You know why? Look at verse 10. Look at verse 10. There'll be a remnant left because God is with us. You see, it won't make any difference. There might be enemies that will come into the church and try to destroy it. But there'll always be a remnant of the church. Always. Let's go to Isaiah chapter 8 and verse 10. Because God is with us. We can be sure of that. Jesus said, I'm going to establish my church. I'm going to establish it. Anything that God establishes, man can't destroy. The church will be right here. Because, look at verse 10, God is with us. So these things, I hope that, I'm just so thankful for the church. I'm very thankful for the Allen's Church, for its leadership. And I just wanted to express my appreciation for the opportunity that I've had to work with it over the years. Thank you so much. But anyway, now we got down, I think, well, I may be off base altogether. I think we got down to chapter 8, and down to about verses 8, 9, 10, along in here. Is that? Now over here is my bookkeeper, so but I think that's where we got into. Anyway, and all of the persecutions, all of the temptations that are put upon the church. Well, it wasn't the church that God. In fact, then it was Judah and Israel. So then but then again, with all of these temptations, with all of these things that are against you, the Assyrian government, Babylonian government, Samaritan people, and then of course, that's why the reason that the Jews wouldn't have anything to do with the Samaritans, that the Samaritans, right here in our time now, the Samaritans had sort of taken over and intermarried with the Jewish people. And that's who the Samaritans actually became, a mixed race of people with Assyrians, with Israelites, with Samaritans. It became Samaria. And now the Jews didn't want to have anything to do with that because it was a mixed race. God didn't want, the Jewish people didn't want to have anything to do with that. That's why the people bypassed. When they went north, they bypassed. But then Jesus, you see, when Jesus went up, he went right in the middle of Samaria, found the woman at the well, approached her and said, "Drink water, draw water for me." She said she would, but she couldn't understand you, Lord. Why are you talking to me? I'm a Samaritan, you're a Jewish man. Why are you talking to me? Because Jesus was setting the ground, setting the pathway that all Samaritans, everybody else, would be included in his kingdom. And so then this is why we need, I think, probably to study his story. And if we wanted to find more, we would need to turn to 2 Chronicles. I think it's chapter 11, beginning about verse 18, explaining the same thing about all the Samaritans, the Assyrians, and how that they intermingled and lost the 10 tribes. But they said Judah, you know what, Judah is going to be, a remnant of Judah is going to be saved. Because Jesus is going to be born through that kingdom, through that group of people. And then, of course, even there, here in chapter 9, beginning verse 6 and 7, you know, Jesus is going to be born. He's going to be born out of Judah. You see, all of these things that we need to know and we need to believe, these are God's messages to us. That this is why we need to be so strong in our faith. Anyway, this is where we got to, and God's not going to forget us. And again, you see, when Assyria, Babylonia, Samaria, all of these nations persecuting God's people. You know, God's people should have, or could have decided. God just turned away from us. God left us. Don't think like that. It won't make any difference what happens in this church. And you may begin to think, God has forgotten us. God's moved on. No. God is with you. God is with us. So we don't lose faith. We just keep faith, keep practicing it. And so then he said, beginning of verse 11, he said, the Lord spake this and see, this is one of this old man, elderly man, elderly man problem that he doesn't see as well as he used to. But anyway, but look here, look at in beginning of verse 11. He said, the Lord spake thus to me with a strong hand. Now look at that. Isn't that a little bit contradictory in language? The Lord spoke to me in a strong hand. We don't speak with a hand. He spoke to us with firmness. A hand that would never turn loose. He spoke to me, he said, with a strong hand, and instructed me that it should not walk in the way of this people. You, Israel, Judah, don't walk. This is why we've got the Samaritan nation now, is because the Jewish people, the 10 tribes, had begun to walk with those people. And now they have become a part of them. I don't know how much of that is telling us. How closely, how intermingled can we afford to get into the world, the activities of the world? We know what happened then. They got so mixed that they became one. Now God is having to deal with this kind of a situation. God is having to deal with that kind of a nation. But now he's now talking to Israel now, talking to Judah and Israel with a strong hand, strong voice. That's one of those analogies. That's one of those metaphors. Not a strong, he didn't use his hand to speak. As if a strong hand. I'm talking to you with strength. And so then he said, I don't want you to walk in the way of these people. I don't want you to say the same thing, do the same thing. Say ye not a confederacy to all them to whom this people shall say. Don't become a confederacy. Don't become a supporter. Don't become a friend to the world. In fact, the Bible tells us, even the New Testament tells us, that we can't become a friend of the world. Well, we associate with the world all the time. And I would imagine that to some degree we have to associate. Sometimes we have to be confederate with the world. But we, as Christian people, surely know where to stop, when to stop, where to go in our Christian living. And so then he said, say ye not a confederacy to all these to them whom this people shall say. A confederacy, neither fear ye, nor fear not to be afraid. Don't be afraid of your enemy. Don't, because Satan is working in the enemy. God is working in us. So if we allow Satan to rule, to control our lives, trust Satan and his activities, when we turn that over to Satan, we're losing our faith in God. You see, these things He said, don't do that. Don't be afraid. Sanctify. So sanctify the Lord of hosts. The Lord of hosts himself. And he said, let him be your fear. Let the Lord be your fear. Let him be the one whom you respect. Let him be your dread. The reason that we need to dread the Lord, the Bible tells us that back then, he was talking about that age, that dispensation. He was talking about that there was enough time when Jesus comes. Then we're in now, and this is the last dispensation, because then the New Testament tells us when Jesus comes again, it'll all be ended. In Peter's writing, in 1 Corinthians chapter 15, it'll be ended. The kingdom will be taken into heaven, and the kingdom judged. And those who are faithful to the Lord taken into glory. And those that are rejecting, leaving out. You see, these are just things that's why we need to fear the Lord. And he said, he shall be not. He'll be the Lord will be a sanctuary for us, but for a stone of stumbling, for a rock of an offense. That's who the Lord's going to be, a rock. To both the houses of Israel and, of course, of Jerusalem. The Lord, if we wanted to go, I guess, into Peter's writings about the stone, in 1 Peter, the stone of the rock, the stone of the Lord, who was rejected back then, in Peter's writing. Let me tell you let me tell you who that stone is. Peter said to the world. We're talking about Jesus, whom the world rejected. But the Lord accepted and made him the head of the corner, the head of the building, whom he built, the church. The very stone that the world rejected, the Lord selected and made him the cornerstone of the house of God, the church. That's why we need to respect the Lord. That's why we don't need to be afraid of the devil. That's why we don't need to be afraid of false teachers. That's why our elders can't back off of false teachers, because they're not going to be judging you. When the Lord, in John chapter 5, beginning about verse 28 or so. When the day comes, all that are in the graves are going to hear his voice. Going to come forth. Going to be judged. We've talked about this, haven't we? That day of judgment, that day of the resurrection. And we're talking about judgment from Adam and Eve, whenever Jesus decides to come back again. How in the world, in this little old world of ours, hold that many people? I don't know. But you know what? I don't doubt a bit. Don't doubt it a bit. He's already got it figured out. In fact, he already figured that out before he ever made the world. See, when we're talking about the church that was actually in the mind of God before the foundation of the world. God, how you gonna handle those people when you raise them all from the dead? 1 Corinthians chapter 15 tells us it's going to be a different body altogether. It's going to be a spiritual body. Not going to be bodies like ours. And you see, when he raises us all for that great judgment day, there might still be a lot more room that he can still use. You see, God will handle it. God will take care of that. I want to be on the Lord's side. Yeah, I want to be on his side. I want to hear him say, well done, thou good and faithful servant. Enter ye into the Lord. I want to hear that. I want to hear that voice. And I'm sure that, all of us here this morning. And I don't know, maybe and I would imagine most of you are Christians, living a Christian life, planning on hearing that voice one day. Enter ye into the Lord. You see, we'll be able to hear that. So again, I just want to thank you so much for the class and appreciate you so much.